And now we got some fucking sound and all that happy shit.
Well, that's pretty fucking fancy.
That's what I'm saying over here. So welcome to April 22nd's fucking episode of 49th episode of whatever the fuck Mark the fucking psycho here.
Well, 7 times 7. It's a pretty auspicious number.
I know, right? You know, and we were speaking of coincidences and fucking all kinds of wacky theory shit earlier, you know?
I mean, like you do.
Yeah. It's just what I like to do. I'd like to be open-minded and actually kind of like learn into that sort of thing. Well, yeah, see, I can't even talk fucking proper English, you know?
Well, proper English is overrated.
That's what I'm saying, you know?
There's a quote from General Patton where he was talking to I think it was his grandson, and he was saying that the true mark of genius is to be able to spell the same word differently every time. Because he had atrocious spelling. He constantly misspelled things, but he was like, I'm not misspelling them, I'm spelling them creatively.
Okay, that's a different way of looking at that.
Yeah. But we were also talking about, well, a lot of shit.
Yeah.
But the most recent one that I was remembering was Talking to Strangers. It was a book that I just finished reading, and the author was talking about talking to strangers and about how bad we are at interacting with people we don't know. When we're talking face to face with like someone we're really familiar with, close friends, family, we're really good at reading emotions on people's faces, making eye contact, understanding what they're feeling.
Yeah.
But with strangers, we're really, really bad at it. And one of the groups that is even worse at it is law enforcement. And the reason they're so bad at it is because they're trained to assume that everyone's face matches what they're feeling. And when there's a disconnect between whether someone is telling the truth and looking shady, or whether they're lying and looking truthful, the police are super bad at detecting that because they believe people based off of their body language.
Yes.
And so that was a rather striking point, but it came up in the context of like Sandra Bland. Are you familiar with her?
No, I have not.
She was a woman who had moved from Chicago to Texas to get a new job at a university. And the day after she arrived, she got pulled over by a police officer and wound up getting ripped out of her car and beaten, like, well, not like beaten, but pulled out of her car. The cop was yelling and screaming, and she killed herself in her cell like 3 days later.
Holy shit.
Because she had had so many negative interactions with police and was starting a new leaf, and all of a sudden it's back to having the cops there harassing her.
Yeah.
So the author went really deep into why are we so bad at interacting with strangers. So it was a really good book.
I'll have to... Who was that by again?
I can tell you in a second. I got it on my phone. But yeah, I don't remember exactly.
Fuck. Because, like, oh, shit. Like, my interaction with strangers just freaks them out because I'll scream what up at them like I know them for fucking 30 years. You know what I mean? And they just kind of... They don't know how to take
Gladwell.
me. Malcolm Gladwell?
Yep, Talking to Strangers by Malcolm Gladwell.
All right. I'll have to look into that. That sounds rather interesting.
It was. One of the other interesting things that he brought up was a study, well, 2 separate studies that were done in Kansas City. And one of them was done in the 70s and the other was done in the 90s. And in the first one, they were trying to test and see whether increased police patrols caused a reduction in crime. So they looked at crime statistics for however long the period was. And then they split up the city into 3 separate areas. One was the control, where they didn't do anything differently. They just had the police responding to calls.
Okay.
Then one of them, they had regular police patrols. And the third one, they had 3 times the normal amount of police patrolling the streets. And over the course of the study, there was 0 difference in crime. So whether or not the police only responded to reports of crimes, whether the police were patrolling normally, or whether there were 3 times the level of police patrolling the streets, there was 0% difference. which caused a whole tiffy in the policing community. They're like, what we do doesn't really matter. This is much bigger than something that the police can deal with. It's a bigger social issue. And then 20 years later, this different researcher came in and was looking very specifically at gun crime. And so he created a 3-part test. And in the first part, they went through and they had 2 police officers go door to door to over 800 houses and hand out flyers and let the citizens know, hey, we're really focused on gun crime. We're trying to stop this. If you have any information about gun crime, illegal guns, give us a call. Let us know. In 3 months, they had 2 calls, and both of them were from out of the area that they were giving flyers out in. So no effect. The second part of the study was they brought a detective in from New York City who was specially trained and super good at finding concealed weapons. Like, he could tell from the way a person was walking whether or not they had a gun on them.
Okay.
And he trained the Kansas City police to detect weapons. 0. They couldn't find a single weapon. And the third part was they used criminologists and they broke down where the crime was happening in the city and what time it was happening. And they found like a 0.6 square mile area of the city that had 50% of the crimes.
Okay.
So they put 4 cops in 2 squad cars and put them on patrols in that 0.6 square miles from, I think it was 11 o'clock at night until 1 in the morning.
Okay.
And their job was to stop every single vehicle they could for anything they could figure out why to pull them over and try to find guns.
Okay.
And in 200 days, they had something like 1,200 stops, and they reduced gun crimes in that 0.6 square miles by 50%. Because they were very focused on where the crime was happening
Yep.
and what times it was happening.
Yep.
So that was the result of the study. If you look at where the crimes are and you go specifically to those places, you can stop them. The policing community was like, oh, we need to do this everywhere. So they increased their patrols and increased their stopping and targeting of everybody they could for every reason they could and put it nationwide with every law enforcement agency. And so instead of defaulting to truth, where they saw regular civilians as regular civilians just going about their business, everyone became a criminal in hiding.
Okay.
And it changed the entire interaction between police and civilians. And if you want to alienate the police force and make them think of all of us as criminals and us think of them as assholes always looking for something,
Yep.
that's how you do it.
Oh yeah. That's I mean, that's essentially what it's evolved to.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, prove me wrong.
You can't.
You know, I mean, not right now with the coronavirus thing going on. I mean, I haven't been harassed or even stopped or even looked at police-wise, but I mean, beforehand, it was, you know, you can get pulled over for a fucking taillight. They're asking you if you got a tank in the car. Are you fucking serious? Like,
Yeah, because they're going beyond the stop.
yeah.
The stop is just the initial reason to get their foot in the door to try to find something bigger.
Oh, absolutely. It's just like, that ain't what we're here about, bud.
Right.
You know, why'd you pull me over?
Yeah.
Give me the fucking reasoning right now. Taillight out. Can I step out of the vehicle to fucking see that?
Yeah.
Can you show me? You know, that way, you know, right then and there, oh, now it's working. Oh, yeah, okay, lick my ass. You know what I mean? Like, people need to question shit. You know what I mean? All these people are just walking around blindly, just fucking assuming that everything that they're told is, you know, legit.
Questioning things. That's one of the most important lessons I've been trying to teach my daughter is question everything. Question me. If I can't give you a good reason why you should do something, then ask.
Yeah.
Figure it out. Like, if I don't have a good reason, I'll admit it, and maybe there's a better way to do it, or maybe we just shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, we have been conditioned to just accept what we've been told.
Yeah.
It's part of our education system. It's part of our society, is just believe what you're told, don't think, do.
Yeah. Absolutely, you're absolutely correct. You know, it's that even goes back to religion. You know, that's especially, you know, fucking, you go back to fucking Sunday school. You know what I mean? Like all that kind of shit. Yeah, especially impressionable as a kid. You know what I mean? You just brainwashed.
Accepting things on faith instead of
Yeah.
questioning and trying to go through actual experience.
Yeah, and now it just makes everybody uncomfortable to sit there and actually question it. Like, okay, well, yeah, you'll see your whole life was a lie because, you know, you blindly follow MSNBC or fucking CNN or...
Or any of the media organizations, they're businesses whose business is to sell a product. And
Yeah.
that product is a facsimile of news and truth. But people who are constantly consuming that, they tend to, I forget the actual term, but it is essentially when you are so overinformed that you believe that you're taking action even though you're sitting there just watching TV.
Yeah,
It's people who think that they're civically engaged just because they know a lot about what's being said on the news.
absolutely.
But one of the interesting things about
Is this going to bother you, sir?
no, I don't mind cigarettes at all.
All right, just checking.
With religion is the experience of religion, the experience of the divine. And I grew up Baptist, like hardcore Baptist.
Okay.
Sunday schools, summer camps, the whole thing, memorizing Bible verses. And about the time I was 13, I realized, well, this doesn't make much sense. It's like, what really got me and what gave me the most questions was free choice or free will.
Yeah.
And the omnipotence and omnipresence of God. It's like, if God is omnipotent and omnipresent and knows exactly what we're going to do before we do it, then how do we actually have free will? And how can he send us to hell for doing something he knew we were going to do before he ever made us?
Yeah, Bill Burr did a good skit on that, basically saying, you created me and now you're going to, you know, through my decisions, which you created, you know, and me, you're going to burn me for eternity over fucking creating me, you know? It's like this whole thing. I'm butchering the shit out of it, but, you know, it's there.
It's hard to keep up with Bill Burr.
I love that fucking guy.
He is hilarious. So that had a lot of questions. It's like, it didn't make any sense. And I didn't really have any understanding of religion in a personal way until much later on when I had experiences with, like, I guess the paranormal, where it was in my parents' house when I was staying with them after a breakup. I had weird shit start happening with, like, things moving when they shouldn't have been, like waking up from a deep sleep, and I look over and my fan, a big box fan, starts like tipping backwards over its feet, just kind of hovers there and then slams down, and shit was going real weird. I was having strange feelings, like always feeling like I was being watched.
Yeah. Oh,
And,
yeah. I hate that.
I had told a friend about it, and she was like, "Oh, you probably just have a spirit in your house." I was like, "Oh, what?
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
not
yeah.
real." And she came over to the house with a pendulum, and she was Wiccan and had set up, she cast a circle and broke out her pendulum and a pendulum board and started asking questions, and that thing started moving. And then she gave it to me, and I started asking questions and seeing this pendulum moving in my hands, and I wasn't moving the fucking thing. And it was like, oh, there is way more than I was told. And
Right.
that kind of started a long process of experience over dogma.
Yeah, you know, and like growing up in the house I grew up in, which there was there would always be this you could hear like a little girl laughing, dude, like fucking 4:00 in the morning. You wake up to go to the piss or something, you'll feel her sit on the bed, the edge of the bed. You could hear a swing set in the fucking room, like you're at the fucking playground, bud. It was eerie. And I went to the bathroom one time, I'll never fucking forget it. It was like 4 in the morning, and you hear a fucking girl laughing like she's having fun at a playground or something, just fucking playing, being a kid. Like 4 years old, you know? And I'm like, dude, what the fuck? The sun ain't even out yet, you know? I open up the back window and I pop my fucking head out of it. Nothing but fucking, you know, crickets or whatever, because it was like July. And I'm like, what the fuck? So I came downstairs and I went outside, dude, and nothing, dead. No fucking kid. No, it was like, what the fuck? And at the time, my sister was older, you know, I don't know, she was probably like fucking 12 or what have you. And so it wasn't her, you know, she was asleep, everybody was asleep. It was just fucking wild, dude. All of a sudden the hair just stood up my arm. It was fucking eerie. And it was like, wow. And I grew up with that forever. And I know electricity has a lot to do with like, oh man, to an extent, some spiritish things, you know. I don't know how else to explain it,
Like
but
the paranormal.
yeah, but the house was so old that the basement had it's basically it's not soaked, but there's condensation down there. So the breaker panel over time kind of got corroded.
What was the basement made out of? Limestone?
It's basically like dirt cellar with fucking rocks all the way around it, you know. So it doesn't flood or anything. It's fairly dry. It's just a little damp, you know. You put something down there tool wise, 8 months it'll have some rust on it, some surface rust. But over time the breakers all corroded, so the fucking breakers weren't popping. We've had wires melt apart in the wall.
Oh, that's not
Oh
good.
yeah, but it was right underneath the fucking stairway. And every fucking time at night you go up the fucking stairs, it felt like somebody's chasing you up there like an evil fucking presence, dude. I'd never forget it. And I lived like that my whole fucking life. It was nuts. But I know exactly what you mean spirit-wise. It's kind of like, what the fuck? But yeah, dude, you'd hear doors slam, weird shit that should not fucking happen. But it wasn't quite poltergeist-like level, at least here. But there was definitely something, and you were like, what the fuck, dude? It was intense.
It does get intense, and it's one of those things. It's like it's not supposed to happen in our paradigm.
Yeah.
Like our scientific materialism says that doesn't exist because science hasn't proven it yet. And
Science is limited, though.
it is, and science is as dogmatic and faith-based as any religion. Science is a religion. It has its own set of priests. It has its ruling class, its catechisms, its beliefs, and a lot of it is a blindness to things that fall outside of what is currently discovered, what is currently scientific fact.
Yeah.
Well, just because it isn't scientific fact at the moment doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Like
Exactly.
relativity existed before Einstein came up with the theory for it.
Yeah, it just didn't come out of the fucking, you know, God's asshole, just like everything else,
I mean,
essentially,
maybe
if
it
you
did,
follow if you follow the fucking Bible to the T, that is. But like you've met JFC there, Jesus
I
fucking
have,
Christ.
yep.
His theory on it is that there's a bunch of worlds on top of each other in different dimensions, densities, if you will. And that's where he's talking about fourth density and so forth and whatnot. But my thought on that is those spirits or whatever are like third density level shit, where they're there in their own realization and their own universe, essentially. Like we're hindering their space in a way, or they're hindering ours, but they're kind of like fucking
Parallel.
yeah, to an extent where they're kind of interlapping each other, and we're feeling that energetic vibe and getting, you know, yeah, that's how I foresee it.
My kind of feeling with it is that it's similar to ultraviolet light or infrared or microwave or radio waves.
Oh, absolutely. It could
They're
be.
all, it's all happening right now. It's all part of our universe. It's just in a spectrum that our bodies weren't evolved to actually
perceive
or
yeah.
detect.
Yep.
And sometimes we have a bigger antenna for it. Sometimes it's late at night and we haven't slept and we're kind of emotionally open and we can sense those things a little bit more readily.
Yeah.
Or maybe there's just a higher voltage of spirit out there that is able to interact in a wider spectrum.
You could be correct with that, you know.
And that's just the way that I've seen a lot of the spirits and paranormal. And I mean, it also goes back to like aliens. Like maybe they're not aliens, maybe they're just higher vibration. They're just spirits or entities that exist outside of what we are able to detect as physical beings that evolved to gather fruit and hunt deer. Like we didn't need to be able to detect those things to survive, so we didn't.
Yeah. I mean, but if we fall back more towards nature rather than all this technology, you know, our primitive nature would eventually start evolving again, and you know, we'd be able to do the hunting and just as good as any other animal out there. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
technology and life and evolution happened, you know. So now I can pick my fucking deer meat up at the fucking butcher. I ain't got to go out in the woods and fucking provide, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I feel like that's also kind of been like the demise of civilization as we know it, in a way, because everything has been so provided for us now that, you know, we've become so lazy, essentially, as a country. Not everybody.
Not
I'm not
just a
calling
country.
anybody out,
I
but
think
yeah, as a
a
world.
species, yeah.
Yeah.
There's another interesting book called Civilized to Death by Chris Ryan. He's an anthropologist, and he traces how civilization maybe wasn't the best idea we ever had, and that hunter-gatherers is how we evolved as a species, and that's how our bodies are designed to interact, how we're happiest, and how if you look at hunter-gatherers who have been brought to civilization, they're like, we want to go back.
Yeah.
Like, this civilization stuff kind of sucks.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I look at it as, what has civilization taken from us? And what is it providing? And what it looks like to me is that we have been commodified, where the fundamentals that we need to survive and thrive as human beings have been taken from our power and our sovereignty and repackaged and resold to us for a profit.
Yeah, for instance, water.
Yeah.
You know, Nestle. CEO, I believe, of Nestle said that water is not a right. You know what I mean? Like, who the fuck goes on camera saying that shit?
Someone who's making a profit off of water.
Well, yeah, but I mean, in the same sense, what a dickheadish fucking thing to say. You know what I mean? Like,
it's a blind thing.
Yeah, you know. But like a lot of them, PepsiCo, I mean, they're just running fucking. I don't forget who it was, but they were running fucking streams and, you know, ponds and all that shit, like essentially dry, and they've just given the fucking green light through fucking government bureaucratic bullshit. Because, hey, they got the money to fucking pay these fucking fines, or here you go, Mr. fucking, you know, Congressman, line your pockets with this and just don't worry about this going on. It's disgusting.
It is, and it's short-sighted.
It really is.
One of the mindsets that I enjoy and I think is really valuable is 7-generational thinking. And it is looking at the effect a decision will have 7 generations from when the decision is made. How is this going to affect the future rather than right now?
See, I'd be bad at that because I just kind of live in the moment and fucking, it's fucked up my life several times.
Mine as well. Like, I am also very bad at it, and it's something that I'm trying to focus on and work with, because I think we have become so short-sighted over what is the immediate profit we can get, the instant gratification, this quarter's earnings. Like, how are we going to make the most of right fucking now, as opposed to looking at, well, we have to live here for a long time.
Yeah.
And it's not just us. We have a duty to those who come after us.
Absolutely.
And those who come after them. There is a continuity to life that we are a part of, and we can't disconnect ourselves from it by just being concerned about ourselves right now.
Yeah. Well, you had mentioned a point earlier. What the fuck was it? Where we're not so much one with nature. We're trying to be God with nature, so we're kind of fucking extincting ourselves. That's
was the thing from Bill Mollison?
Yeah.
Yeah, Bill Mollison was a founder of the permaculture movement back in the 70s, and the way he and the others who started it, and a lot of us who are currently involved in permaculture, see things is nature does things pretty well, and in a way that builds more life. So maybe we should look at the patterns from nature in creating new patterns for the future, and finding the way things are connected. In permaculture, everything is connected. And if it's not connected, it's not working. Because without a diversity of inputs and outputs, things are really fragile.
Yes.
Like monoculture, monocropping, like fields of corn are really susceptible to disease and insects. But if you have guilds where you have corn, beans, and I forget the third one that's in the Three Sisters, I always forget it. It's some kind of legume, I think. They're much stronger together than they are separate, and they produce higher yields per like square foot than a monoculture. But you have to spend more time and labor harvesting different things.
Yes.
But the point of like destroying nature in order to harvest a yield from it, like we are exploiting these resources in a short-sighted striving for profit. Like we all live here, we all need to continue living here, but in order to extract the maximum value, we've mechanized and poisoned and overfarmed and overfished and overhunted, and it's just, we're not looking forward, we're looking to right now.
Yeah, as a whole, absolutely. And that's gonna fuck us later on down the road. You know?
It's starting to fuck us right now.
Yeah,
like there's dementia is being called type 3 diabetes now because it's a result of our food.
I believe it. All this genetically modified fucking shit, and everybody's
the processed foods, the like really high carbs, like a lot of it is just lacking in nutrients and packed full of artificial chemicals and all sorts of other stuff.
Yeah, fucking, it blows my fucking mind now. And that's shit that the FDA puts fucking stamp of approval on. Fuck yeah, sign it up, you know?
A really funny story about the FDA was, I think it was in the 80s, there was a study of traffic patterns in Washington, D.C., because for some reason there was really, really bad traffic that couldn't be accounted for with the width of the roadways and how many cars were actually on the road. And so over weeks of studying it, they realized that during rush hour every morning and every night, there was one car that was always in the high speed lane, but was always doing exactly the speed limit. So it was creating rolling traffic jams wherever this car was going. He was a functionary with the FDA. And over the course of his career, like if this story that I heard was true, he had never approved a single drug. He always stamped them no. And it was this one guy who thought when he was interviewed, like, well, I'm doing the speed limit. I can be in whatever lane I want. This is the lane that's open.
Nope.
So he chose that one because it was more convenient to him to fuck over everybody else around him.
Oh, absolutely.
But the FDA is doing some really good things with MAPS. We were talking about MAPS earlier, and Johns Hopkins with, for those who don't know, MAPS is the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies, headed by a guy named Rick Doblin. And they've gotten, I think it's emergency phase 3 for clinical studies of MDMA assisted PTSD treatments. And their protocol is using doses of MDMA, which is commonly known as ecstasy, in a clinical setting with 2 therapists. The person has like a soundtrack and a blindfold, and they're sat down and they're made as comfortable as possible. They're given the MDMA, and they're asked to recount or relive traumatic experiences. And with MDMA being what it is, it overwrites the traumatic experience with a much more pleasurable and safe one. And over the course of 3 treatments, it is taking treatment-resistant PTSD and making it so it doesn't exist anymore. They're curing people of post-traumatic stress disorder, and they've been doing that with veterans because we owe a debt to our veterans to not send them overseas for pointless wars and then bring them home broken.
Absolutely.
So I think MAPS has done some incredible work, and the stroke of genius of targeting the veteran community for help kind of puts the government in a little bit of a catch-22 where they can't say no when it's being proven that it's working.
Yeah, especially because they don't want to look like assholes to veterans any more than they already fucking have.
Yep.
I could follow through with that. I could understand that idea and concept, you know?
Yep. And, like, I know we've both done MDMA allegedly. So if you had allegedly done MDMA, you can speak from experience that it is a consciousness expanding chemical that really can help change the perspectives and beauty of the world.
It really can. It opens up your mind. I don't even know how else to really fucking put it out there, but yeah, it's really expanded my mind and the want to be open-minded and really learn like different opinions and theories and thoughts, and it's definitely helped me and helped calm my ass down quite a bit, I must say.
I like the there is a small push
allegedly.
To have it, yes, allegedly recategorized not as a psychedelic but as an empathogen. And I like that term, empathogen, for MDMA, because that's what it feels like. It makes you much more open to emotions, to feelings.
Yeah, that's where I get fucked.
More subtle movements of energy. And the first time I took MDMA out at a club and experienced music, like, I had never been one to dance. That was never something that I was interested in, because dancing was... like, I was a very macho, masculine person.
I just felt like people watch me and I'd be all fucking embarrassed. And self-conscious, I couldn't do it. Yeah. And I'm still overcoming that daily.
The first time I did MDMA at a club and there was music and I started dancing, and it felt so liberating and so freeing, and it just felt incredible to move to music, to sense that vibration and an energy. And... like, since then, I've taken dance lessons. I've danced all over the place. I've actually done performances. And it's like, I never would have done that without MDMA.
Oh, yeah.
I never would have had the experience of like, oh, music is so much deeper than I ever could have imagined.
Yeah, it's fucking wild shit.
It is. And it gives an appreciation for, like, string theory, like music, quantum physics, drugs.
Yeah. Well, people perceive it as just, it's fucking music. But to me, it was like the energetic vibe you get off of it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It can really play with your mood in a lot of different ways. And
it can do trance states. Like ecstatic dance is a thing.
Absolutely.
Have you ever experienced ecstatic dance? Or
I have not.
It's something that I've done personally, is just put on music and danced myself into like a transcendental state. And there are, like, it was a traditional thing in American Indian tribes. The Sundance is something like that, where they don't do drugs. They just dance for 4 days straight.
I'd punch somebody.
It's brutal. Yeah. It's exhausting. It's a fast. All they do is drink water. They don't have any food. They work themselves through fasting and exertion into these like psychedelic states.
I could believe it. In between, deprivation of sleep, overexertion of muscles. Now your bodies are fucking just throwing chemicals out automatically just to make sure you can fucking still not die, but still move because you're still awake. I could.
One of the interesting things I'd heard from an interview with a Sundancer was talking about how. One of the things with the Sundance is that on like the second or third day, depending on the dancer, when they feel ready, they pierce their chest or back with a carved branch or log and tie it to the tree that's at the center of the Sundance. And they continue dancing around this tree while tied to it through this piercing until it rips out of them.
Fuck that.
And the Sundancers are all men. And he was saying that it's a rebirth ritual, and it really balances the masculine and feminine energies in a person when they're dancing around this, going through all of the pain of basically labor, bringing something new into the world. There's the pain, the blood, the exertion of giving birth to a new year. And it's a way that the men of these tribes are able to share in that experience with women of bringing new life to the world.
Okay, that's a different way to perceive that. That's not something I'd be open to try. Fuck that.
Yeah, like it's by invitation. Like sun dancers are highly regarded, and it's not something just anybody does. So
yeah, I wouldn't dismiss that. I mean, they do that for obviously respect and shit, and that's respectable right there. But I wouldn't be quick to dismiss it. But I ain't about that. Fuck that.
Yeah. Like if I ever was in a position where I was invited, I would do my best. Like I think that's one of the best things that we can do is look at things like if we are invited to take on a new challenge or a new role, take it.
Yeah.
And do our best at it.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It's I look at it as this is fucking what if, you don't know unless you get your fucking fat ass off the couch and you go fucking make it happen. Which is essentially me building the studio. But I mean, I digress. Continue there. But yeah.
Well, I mean, that is part of it. Yeah. You had a vision and you're building your vision.
Yeah, I mean, what if I couldn't just sit there and not fucking do it and fulfill it? You know what I mean? Like, it just, what if, I doubt I doubt we're going to go anywhere, but I mean.
Well, you never know. And absolutely. We're here right now. Like,
yeah.
Without this podcast studio right here, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Absolutely. And I don't know if I've shown you the studio too with the band room and the stage and everything.
You showed me the pictures of it, yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to show you that in person because that's kind of wild. I just recently bought an 8-channel mixer. We're going to do some live music and shit. We're going to wire that up with condenser mics like a legitimate studio, and we got the sound down there dampered to the point where it's studio quality.
Nice.
And we're gonna be able to fuck yeah. We got some local bands too that we're looking to bring in here to, well, I mean, not during this COVID fucking stay away from me bullshit, but but we do have that capability to be able to bring live bands in and live stream them, and so I don't know how we fucking got on this, but I digress.
Well, following passions and accepting opportunities when they arise.
Absolutely.
Like there's a few speakers that I like. Jordan Peterson talks about it. Charles Eisenstein talks about it, where in order to really change the world, we have to look at what is meaningful to us, what particular problems cry out for our solutions.
Okay.
Like we all have our own gifts to give and our own ways to change the world. And if we're just doing what everyone else is doing, we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, the uniqueness of each individual, because we were all created differently, if you want to look about it through the Bible standpoint, but yes.
And even more than the Bible standpoint, like every single being on earth is born for a particular reason. We all have a niche to fill.
Yeah.
Like the particular combinations of our genes have never happened before and will never happen again.
Yeah.
Like there is a reason why our genes were expressed, and we all have a particular purpose that calls out to us. Like this podcast studio is incredibly important to you to make happen.
Yeah.
Personally, in my life, I've found that carpentry and permaculture have called out to me, and those are things that I'm making happen. Like everybody has something that's important to them, some particular problem that they just can't let go.
Yeah.
And we can choose to either express those or it drives us insane. And what do we do in that case? We drown it in distractions like video games, drugs, alcohol, sex, television, like whatever distractions it is that quiets that voice saying, hey, there's something you should be doing.
Yeah, your uniqueness is fucking trying to get your attention to make something fucking happen, essentially.
Exactly, yeah.
And let's just drown that motherfucker and everything.
And it doesn't really matter where that uniqueness or where that voice comes from. I think it's pretty universal that there is always something that calls out to our attention. And we can choose to look at it and accept it and do our best to take it on, or we can try to avoid it and I think in that way lies a lot of discomfort.
I think you're right. You know, there's people are afraid of change, which thus brings the discomfort. You know, I mean, you know, they just go with what they know and what their society, you know, has paved the way for, essentially. You know, it's not about fuck. Yeah, you know.
But it's all about fuck.
Yeah, you're right. It is. It's always about fuck. Want some fuck?
You want some fuck? That was such a big thing when I was LARPing. That fucking dowry bird. You remember that? The video, the meme?
Yeah. Yes, I do. Okay.
Or the bowerbird, I think it's called. The like blue ones that build the elaborate nests and stuff.
I think so.
It was just a ridiculous meme video with this male bowerbird like hopping around trying to seduce and court a female, and it just came down to, you want some fuck?
Yeah. Okay. Yes, I think I do now. I smoked too much weed, buddy. I don't fucking remember.
Weed is magic. It's a powerful substance.
It is. It opens up my mind, but it also fucks up my short-term memory. But I mean, to be fair, it was fucked up before the marijuana usage. Or, I'm sorry, the cannabis usage.
Yeah, I definitely prefer the term cannabis. Like, once I
do
found
too.
out where the popularization of marijuana as a term came from, and I was like, oh, wait a minute. This was all brought about by a fucking government stooge and a printing magnate who wanted to screw over an entire industry to protect their power? What?
Yeah, you're right, because even back in like the 1900s, it was labeled as medicine as cannabis. Not
Yeah.
marijuana, but cannabis.
And, what was his name? William Randolph Hearst and is it something Ainsley was the guy who was in charge of the, I could be speaking totally wrong, but he was the guy who was in charge of Prohibition, basically. Where after Prohibition ended, his organization was losing its power or in danger of losing its power, so they needed a new criminal. They needed a new bad guy to go after to keep their funding and keep the employment.
That's the war on drugs.
Exactly. And so they worked with William Randolph Hearst because he was in danger of losing his paper mills to hemp production, because hemp was going to produce paper much more efficiently than lumber would.
Months instead of years on.
Exactly.
And the pulp's already fucking pretty much fibrous at the point, you know, because it's not fucking solid mass. You could, oh, look, it's fucking pulpesh.
Yeah.
You know?
And so they worked together to create a new villain in cannabis and make it like scary as like an illegal immigrant thing in order to swing public perception and make both the cannabis and hemp plants illegal.
But this is where my conspiracy theory brain goes into effect and says also in the same time with the timber control to be able to perform or, you know, provide said paper. Is also population control, because now they're sawing down forests. Oh, look, here's all of a sudden a fucking development. We're going to overstuff this place, this place, this place, this place. And essentially that's because they paved the way of the landscape, because they're sawing the whole fucker down. You know what I mean?
Yep.
While you're at it, just sell it off to this fucking company, which is sub-owned through my fucking brother-in-law. And now all of a sudden it's a fucking housing development. But, you know, greedy cocksuckers like that. Yeah.
That brings up a funny nepotism story. I was working at a job site that is federally owned, and there were 4 of us on the site, and we had dug a trench that had to be filled with concrete so we could put these stanchions into it. And one of the guys was operating a skid steer, bringing bucketfuls of concrete over. One of the guys was planing it and troweling it. I was working on bringing wheelbarrows of concrete over, and the other guy was hanging out and chatting and talking and not really doing much.
Typical government job.
And so the federal employee who was supervising us was watching, and he's like, what does that kid do? He's like, what's he doing? It looks like he's not doing a whole lot of anything. It's like, whose nephew is that? Like, whose nephew is this kid? And we're like, he's not anyone's nephew. And he walks up to him and he's like, hey man, whose nephew are you? He's like, which of the managers are you related to It lets you just stand around and chat. And he's got all pissed off. But the funniest thing is he isn't anyone's nephew. He's their drug dealer. Like, he provides stimulants for some of the management. And it's just, well, that explains it.
Yeah, you can get away with such
Yeah.
a thing.
You can either have a blood connection or a drug connection. You got to work the angles.
Either way, you're family, motherfucker. Absolutely. It's always family. One way or another.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking A.
But cocaine is one that I've never done. I've had opportunities, but it's never actually interested me.
I've done my fair share of it, and it's you feel good until it's gone, and then you go through. You don't feel so good, you know. And I'm done with it.
Yeah.
You know, the only thing I touch is cannabis now. That's the only thing I'll touch. I've had my fucking share of drug problem in the past. I really have. I've gone fucking. I don't know how I haven't killed myself, bud. There's been times where I've been nodding out, passing through intersections, through stop signs, and I don't know how I haven't killed somebody else, or even myself. But even all my family thought I was either going to end up dead or rehab, and I ended up proving them all wrong. I just used cannabis to get clean. And
well, cannabis and your podcast studio.
Yeah,
It's
you know,
like
I
you've
mean,
recognized a purpose and started pursuing it.
and since I've lost my license, I've also developed the Doomsday bike, to be able to get back and forth to work at a fuel efficient fucking cost. And instead of buying the pre-filled fucking cans of fucking gas, I ended up just mixing my own. I let fucking laziness take a back seat this time, and instead of conveniency in a fucking can like I was mentioning with the dumbing down, and they'll do it for you. It's all ready. You just pour it in the tank. It's fucking good to go, and the nozzle on it's nice and small, so you ain't missing. You ain't pouring anything out. But I was like, fuck it. So I made a mess filling my fucking fuel tank the other day. But
really goddamn easy to mix the fuel oil.
yeah, it really
so
is.
easy.
You fucking 2 gallons of gas, and then I threw two fucking 40 to ones in.
Yeah,
you know,
they're just tiny little
shake
cans.
the fuck up.
Yeah, exactly. It's
And then
so easy.
pour it right in. But I ended up pouring it all over the fucking place.
Well, you made a mistake on the first one, and you'll learn from that lesson.
Yeah, absolutely. But at the same time, you know what? It cost me a fucking third of the cost. I found a can. I didn't have to purchase the can. I bought the can fucking years ago through another fuck up that I did through my life. While I was all drugged out and spending all my money on drugs instead of gas. I'd run out of gas a lot, so I threw a gas can in the back of the car for a while, just to make sure I could make it to some place. But hey, live and learn.
You learned, and now you've got a use for it.
Absolutely.
So it wasn't wasted.
Blew the car up, lost the license, but hey, it's still a usable fucking product. It's about the only thing I've hung on to my entire life, through all the fuck ups I've done, and I've done a lot of them.
Yeah.
I'm pretty good at those fuck ups.
They were important, though.
Yeah, it's how I learned.
Exactly.
It's my experience. I have my regrets, but I don't at the same time, because there were learning experiences.
Yeah, and one of the things that Aubrey Marcus talks about is you can't really judge yourself for what you did in the past, because you always did your best at any given moment with the information and experiences you had.
You're absolutely right,
You can't look back and be like, man, if I knew then what I know now, I wouldn't have made that choice. Well, fuck it, you didn't. You didn't know then what you know now.
Yeah.
You know now what you know now.
Exactly.
And you're going to fuck up in the future, and then you're going to look back on that and be like, oh, man, if only I had known. Well, you didn't. You did the best you could with what you had.
Yep, the tools, the knowledge, the experience, the whole fucking nine. And that's where I feel like, I don't know, through all my personal gain and, loss and decisions, I've learned not to hold on to possessions so long or so much, you know what I mean? I lost fucking thousands of dollars worth of either tools, fucking life, just shit in general, I've had I've had fucking all kinds of shit, dude. Chip Foose fucking autograph, fucking just giving it away, it's just gonna get ruined in my fucking life because I just fuck up so much. I'm always moving. Shit happens. Whoops.
And what are possessions?
Yeah, you can't take them with you. You know what I
can't.
mean? They're just
They're
shit
not
you acquire.
permanent. Yeah, and one of the most beautiful lessons that I've learned from Burns is impermanence. It's one of the most necessary lessons to learn again and again, is that nothing lasts.
No, it does not.
No physical thing is going to last. We're not going to last. We all die. We all fade away. We lose everything.
Yeah.
And it's like, what matters is the experience and the connections and what we've given. I just think that Burns and burn culture are so beautiful, to go onto these sites where everything is a gift. All of the staff are volunteers. Everyone is encouraged to participate and not be a consumer or
A leech, if you will.
yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone is encouraged to donate their time, if not something more. All of the art is given by artists who just want to make something beautiful, and then it goes away.
Yeah.
The effigies are these incredible structures that are built by volunteers with a common goal to make something incredible, and then they light it the fuck on fire, and it's gone.
Absolutely.
And if that just isn't a beautiful metaphor for life, it's just everything we build goes away.
Yeah.
Everything we are goes away. And so be present in the moment with what we have now, who we're with.
Yeah.
And we were talking about magic earlier, and burns are magic. Like, the first time I went to a burn, the sites are closed. Once you go onto the site, you're not allowed to come back in unless, like, if you leave, you can't come back in unless you give up something of value, like burn swag, like necklaces that have tokens from the burn.
Okay.
So if you leave, you can't come back without giving energy back to it. So
Okay.
you're on the site, and it's a closed perimeter. And there is so much giving. Like, there isn't any money. Everything is a gift. There's no barter. It's all a gift. And everyone is encouraged to be radically themselves. And at the effigy and at the temple, people pour out their souls, writing notes, leaving tokens. And it's just so much is left on these impermanent objects. So much energy, so much hope, so much pain is just left on them. And everyone comes together, and on the last day, there is what's called the conclave, which is fire spinning and music, and they have these performers who come out and they just perform together. Most of them have never met, and they just spin fire and do beautiful things together for like 20, 30 minutes, and then the effigy is burned, and all of that energy goes up in fucking flames. Everything that people have left, all of their pain, all of the past year is just burned away. And at some point, I never know exactly why they pick the point they do when it's burned out enough. They release the effigy, and everyone stands up at once and runs around this bonfire in a circle. And it just builds up so much power. And what do we do with these burns? They all have a topic. They all have a focus. Like, a common goal that people are thinking towards with the new year. And when this fire goes up, when all of that's burned away, it's like releasing the intention to go out and make change in the world.
Yep.
So I think they are incredible. And I've met incredible people who have changed my life at Burns.
It's got to be pretty freeing too to let that built up fucking anger or whatever, you know, see it burn away, that negative energy, if you will.
It is incredibly freeing.
It's pretty wild shit.
So
I'd love to participate in one, you know.
once COVID passes,
Yeah, you know.
'cause,
Yeah.
Burning Man is being done virtually this year.
Is it really?
Because they aren't sure if they're going to be able to have an in-person burn. So Burning Man, the biggest burn in the world, is being done online.
That's wild. Isn't that done out in Nevada?
Yeah, somewhere out in the desert. That's one I'd like to eventually go to, but it's not an immediate goal.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of other shit going on. But they have regional burns,
Feel
and
ya.
those are the ones I've been going to is regional burns. So if anyone is interested, you can just look them up because there are burns in your area. We have one in Vermont. There's one out in Syracuse. There's a couple down in like Maryland and in New England.
It'd be pretty fucking wild to attend.
Yeah, I definitely want to go to the one in Vermont. It's called Firefly. It's normally at the end of July. So,
Yeah, we'll see how that pans out, you know?
yeah, I've been keeping an eye on it, and right now they're looking at postponing it.
It's better than cancellations.
Yep.
Not that the cancellation can't be just redone, you know? Just be like, oh, fuck, I guess COVID's done. Let's fucking do it anyways. Full send.
Sign up.
But yeah, it'd be nice to attend something like that. I'm going to try and wrap this up because I
Okay.
actually got to take a fucking wicked piss.
Well, that sounds good.
But, you know, I'd love to have you on for future shows and whatnot, you
I'd
know?
enjoy to be on again, and maybe us and Jesus fucking Christ can have a conversation.
I know. I feel like we get deep into fucking thought and all that happy shit with that going on. You know what I mean?
Sounds like a good time.
It really is. I feel like it. You know, we could cover all kinds of topics more so than I have on this fucking notepad of whatnot. I find if I don't typically write down topics, I get too fucking baked, and I just lose my train of thought. So that's why, like, I tried to take it easy today on Mr. Bong and fucking I threw some roaches in there. So that's why I wasn't offering any of that.
Well, I'm still taking it easy myself.
Yeah.
Figuring out cannabis's place in my life.
Absolutely. You know, absolutely. It's I gotta say, it's definitely put my life in the positive. You know, I've been very suicidal in the past, and all that's in the past. You know, I don't feel like that anymore, and it's definitely taken my mental energy and you know, it's put it in the positive. You know.
Well, we can wrap this up, take a piss, and then smoke some cannabis.
All right, sounds like a plan.
All right.
Thanks for fucking tuning in. Till next time.